is
good morning. Good
Happy
morrow.
Monday.
Happy Monday. All right, welcome to Driftwood Guitars. My name is Chris. Matt Miller behind the camera, as always. We're going to do episode number 2 of our 3,000-year-old guitar build. Here's where we left off last time. It's in the plate joiner that we got from LMI. It has been drying for like 5 days now, so I think we're good. But I'm going to go ahead and pull it out so you guys can see what it looks like. You only need to do this for like an hour and a half, 2 hours of dry time before you can move on, if for those of you following along at home.
We've had other things going on, so.
Yeah. Matt and I had lots of gigs over the weekend and all that stuff.
Back to the salt mines.
But here we go. Here's how this came out right now.
Ooh.
Nice. It's got a sound. What does it sound like? It sounds like something.
Yeah.
So today's
It's woody.
Today what we're gonna do is I'm actually gonna run this through the drum sander, and we're gonna take it down to just get it level, and then I'm going to load it into the CNC machine, and we're gonna cut out the actual shape of the guitar as well as do the rosette, and then we'll put it back in the drum sander and then give it to its final thickness before we'll start bracing up the top. Just like this whole series, we're using the tools that I have at hand. Some of you guys are going to be thicknessing your tops differently than I do, and most of you will probably be doing your rosettes using a rosette jig, which is what I used for years, but I use the CNC now, so that'd be kind of cool for you guys to see. And I see what you did there. But we're going to get this over to the drum sander, and I will kind of walk you through the process of just the rough initial sanding of the top. All right, so what I'm using, and I think, have we used this before in some other videos? I think I used it in the Coca-Cola video. So this is my Powermatic 2244, the PM2244 drum sander. So it is one of my one of my favorite tools in the shop. If you are looking into getting into guitar building, you don't have to have a drum sander. It's gonna make your life a lot easier, but it's a huge barrier to entry for a lot of people because they think they need one. You can do this same process using hand planes. Right now, what I'm doing is I just want to get this soundboard equally thicknessed. I'm gonna get rid of the little glue joint in the middle here and the glue joint on the back, get rid of any low spots, just get it to a consistent thickness before we do any work on the CNC machine. Or in your case, before you were to put the rosette in. We are not at this point looking to take this to its final thickness. So with that said, I'm just gonna run this through here for a few passes, and we'll get that going real quick for you. All right, let's come over here. You can just stand right there, yeah. Okay, so that process, once again, was just about getting this thing even. Matt was asking while we were doing it, like, do we need the calipers? And we do not need them for that step. Now what we have is just a perfectly smooth surface on this side and a smooth surface on this side. What that'll do now is reveal to you like what the wood's actually gonna look like. Especially sometimes your boards are like really roughly sawn, so you really can't tell what the grain looks like. So at this point, now I can really sit here and go, which side do I want to be the outside? So this is when you want to take your time to do that. They're almost identical. I think I'm gonna do this side. So we'll make this side the outside, and you can see, so with my journal that I had from my previous build with the same wood, we took the top 2.8 millimeters. I think we're probably north of 3 still. Yeah, we're at 3.8 millimeters right now. So I've got a millimeter of extra material still left on here. You know, it's still got a good sound. I don't do a whole lot of work on how the guitar sounds at this point. But so what we'll do now at this point is I'm gonna get the CNC machine all fired up. Pull up the program that we need to, and I'll walk you guys through the process that I use to do that. So yeah, we'll move over there and do that. All right, so we've got the soundboard loaded onto the spoil board. I've got my file loaded up in G-code, and I am going to run it, and we're gonna cut out the sound hole first, then it's gonna do our alignment pins. I'll change out bits, we'll cut the rosette, and then we'll do the perimeter of the guitar. So it's pretty straightforward for me. I don't have to do a whole lot of work here. I did all the work on the programming end, and I've been using this file for a while. We're gonna let it rip. All right, so me and Matt went and grabbed some lunch, some Mexican food. Before we left, something that I did was inside the rosette channels that we've cut, I actually laid in some lacquer. You can use shellac or lacquer. But when you go to do this with this Zip Flex, I use this Zip Flex flexible abalone shell by Advanced Shell Technology inside my rosettes. It just makes it a lot faster. Plus, I don't have to use very much purfling. One of the issues that you can come up with sometimes is that it seeps a little bit of color for some reason into the wood. It's probably not an issue with the ancient Sitka because it's gray, but with light colored wood sometimes you can see it. In order to prevent that, you can seal it with shellac or lacquer, so that's what we did before we went to lunch. Matt's dying.
Lacquer?
I barely know her. So I'm gonna actually hammer this in, and I'm using a wider abalone on the inside ring and then a narrower one on the outside ring, and I'm laying in a small piece of purfling as well. But yeah, let me knock that in there real quick and we will move on. Okay, so remember this is 3.8 millimeters thick, this top, so it's way thicker than we need it to be. You notice that I put my rosette in before I did my final thickness, and there's a reason why I did that, because now I've got room to sand this down and to get this whole thing nice and level to reveal the pearl at the same exact level as the top of the spruce. I can remove from the front or the back and work on getting this thing down to its final thickness. So right now my first thought is just lower the top to just get this perfectly flush. So I'm going to run this through a few times. I'll turn the sander off and we will talk about my thought process in getting this top to its final thickness. If you are using a drum sander, I have not touched the drum sander since the last time I ran this through it, so it's already at the exact same height. So now I can just run it through by turning it on. All right, so it's a little bit dull just because it's just been freshly sanded, but you can really see how that abalone is gonna pop now. It's nice and level. This whole surface is completely flush. And because my top is already too thick, give me room to be able to remove material. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start removing material from the backside. And as I mentioned earlier, I know based off of the other guitar that I've built with this exact same piece of wood, which is not normally the case, that I need to get this to about 2.8 millimeters thick. The other way that I would do that if this is not a piece of wood that I already am familiar with, sorry, let me grab my micrometer, is by taking notes and having a general idea of if it's Sitka spruce, is it Adirondack spruce, or whatever it is it redwood. You'd have a general ballpark of when you really need to start paying attention. But for me, I watched a DVD years ago with Kevin Ryan on how to like voice a guitar, and it was something that really kind of opened it up for me as far as it became more of a tactile thing. So for me, it's a sense of how does the wood feel, And what I'm looking for is this, I do this little snappy thing, and I'm listening for and feeling for a little bit of a sheet metal, kind of a little bit of a metallic kind of almost like it's a saw sound and feel. This guitar top feels incredibly stiff still. It's not there. It also feels too stiff to me this way, and that's something that you can only gain with experience. If this is your first guitar, your second guitar, third guitar, you just aren't gonna know. There's just no shortcuts. It's something that you just have to do. Like, and me teaching Matt how to build these guitars, it's just gonna take time. And it's nice for him because he can run it through the drum sander and then bring it over to me and say, hey, are we there yet? The other thing that I can use is I can know by just measuring as 3.4 millimeters or 134 thousandths too thick. I just know that that's too thick. So I'm gonna run this through a few more times, flipping it over now, doing just the back. I'm really happy with this, with how this looks and how flat it is. So I don't want to take off any more off the top. So we're gonna turn this drum sander on to slowly start taking it down. I got about 0.5 millimeter to take off here. All right, you guys probably saw on the time lapse there, I had Matt. This is your first time me doing that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that I've actually kind of had time to show you.
Yeah.
Just giving Matt like a good feel for it, showing him. So it's like this, grabbing the sides by the flats of your hand on the lower bout and just giving it a pop. You can see I'm not really moving that much, but it's like I don't know, Matt's microphone died, so you should be able to hear what I'm saying, but.
Yeah. No, it's like there's a reverberation or there's a springiness to it that it feels like it feels energetic. I think that's the word I'm looking for.
And it was like 1/10 of a millimeter I shaved off between it feeling not energetic and energetic. It's just such a thing. So when you are taking your tops, if you've got a target thickness, say it's 110 thousandths, which I know is a very common one, 115 thousandths all the way to 90 thousandths if you're using Imperial, that you'll see a lot of times on the Luthier's forums. Before you get there, like if you're at 120 thousandths, you need to really slow down. And now you're taking off the tiniest little passes if you're using a drum sander. If you're using a hand plane, same thing. You want to slow down before you get to your target thickness because you want to now start listening to what the wood is telling you. I know that always sounds like snake oil, but it really does give you feedback. It'll tell you when it's happy. If you accidentally feel like you've gone a little too thin, you can make up for that. You can make up for that by putting on thicker braces, by putting on a thicker bridge plate. If you go too thick, if you feel uncomfortable and you want to leave this a little bit thicker, then you can use lighter bracing. You can kind of equalize it in different ways with one another. But let's see what we ended. I honestly didn't even measure. But 2.8 to 2.85 millimeters was my last ancient Sitka guitar that I finished that came out incredible sounding. So this one is at 2.88 and 2.75, and it's perfect because it's thinner on the bass side than it is on the treble side, which is to me a more desirable effect because you have less tension on the bass side and more tension on the treble side. So even that's the 1/10 of a millimeter is going to make a difference. So I'm super happy with this. I call that fully thickness. So I'm going to come over here. I want to show you what this looks like with some mineral spirits wiped on it. The other thing to think about too is that you're still, as you build this guitar, you're going to be doing many sanding operations. You know, you're going to brace up the top, you're going to voice the top, and then you're going to glue it to the sides and glue the back on, and then you're going to do several processes between now and the finish where you sand the whole guitar. So you're still going to take off a little bit more material on this. Something to think about. Actually, I'm going to use naphtha on this just because it dries quicker. You want to use naphtha or mineral spirits to wipe it down to make sure your rosette is really good because it'll reveal any. This does not do a good job of revealing the color of this ancient Sitka, but it makes it almost look green. I'll tilt it up so you can see better. It actually looks pretty cool. So I think we'll call that done, right? We were going to start a new thing that we wanted to do, right? We had a dumb name for it, and we're sticking with it. We wanted to pose a question in our videos, so we're going to call it the sounding board question of the day. And so my question for you guys as builders or yeah, just as builders, because you have to have the experience here, is how do you go about knowing when the top is ready for bracing? How do you go about knowing that the top is thick enough or thin enough to start doing the bracing process? I'd love to hear what you use as your gauge of when it's ready. It'll also help out a lot of budding builders to have a better understanding of when that, of how they can approach this process other than just using my technique. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. This is episode number 2. We're going to be doing episode number 3 very shortly, which we will be doing gluing on the bridge plate and I guess beginning to cut up the brace wood and gluing that on. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe. Like I said, we're going to be shooting videos all summer long, and hit the bell notification so you get a ding every time that we put a video up. And what else, Matt?
Measure twit kadunk.
Measure kadunk, and we'll see you guys next time.